Thank you for tuning into the Conscious Hour. I want to ask you a question. How's the world doing? Yep. Everybody is confused, dismayed, disappointed, and wondering, maybe for some, how did we get here? How did we get here to the brink of a nuclear war? How did we get here when we have governments that are supposed to be communicating with each other? And what's the Conscious Hour about? It's your Conscious Hour. Meaning, if you ask people a question, have you had enough? And you just wait for them to respond, you could be sitting in a room with a person and listen for a half hour. Because people are fed up. They've been divided, but that's artificial. We get divided because we get put into camps, kind of like the Republicans versus the Democrats, the socialists versus the communists, or all of the different labels we have. And then we have wars. I was born in 1952. And when I was born, I didn't talk for 2 years. And I was blind in one eye because I had a cataract. And because of that, I had a different perspective in the world. Some people could have thought I was slow because I didn't talk, but I really was in shock because my uncle was in a concentration camp at the time during the war before I was born, and then was basically freed by the Russians. And so when I was a little kid, I asked a question when I was third grade, sitting underneath my desk with an air raid siren going off, to my third grade teacher, Mrs. Curie. I started laughing. And across from me under the other desk was Marlene Lowry. Never forget her. Blonde hair, brown eyes, the best smile in the world, in my friend. And I answered to the teacher and I said, why are we underneath the desk if they're going to launch an atomic bomb? We've seen the movies. Everybody gets melted down. They're all dead and life doesn't go on. And then the other thing, she said, well, I don't understand why you're saying something like that. And I said, because I have Russian blood in me. I have Italian blood in me. I have Danish blood in me. I have Swedish blood in me. I have English blood in me. I'm a mixed blood. And I couldn't believe that the Russians were our enemy because they were our ally in World War II. They were our ally in World War I. So how did we get here? I spent my life asking the question. You know that story about Curious George? Well, they keep asking questions all the time, and somebody says, are you ever done asking questions? That was me. I have to volunteer for that. Because I was in school, I kept asking questions. Things that didn't make sense. Stories, history that was told to me that didn't quite make sense. And so when I got into high school, I had to take a language. And I really wanted to understand Germany. I wanted to understand how the Russians now are our enemy. They built the Berlin Wall, and I got lucky. My German teacher was from Berlin, and she was 12 years old during the war. And I asked her to teach me German through history, what it was like living in Berlin, in a divided country, in a war zone. Then after the war, the wall went up. Russia took that territory, and the Allies stayed in their countries. The Conscious Hour is about looking at what the problems are, clearly defining them, and then laying out solutions to get out of the messes that we've created around the world. I'm an American citizen. I'm proud of America. Meaning I'm proud of the fact that I was raised with the idea that democracy was about we the people. That's every one of you. That's every one of you. I'm old enough, and I'm sure most people are watching this, and maybe the younger ones are watching it too. I hope so. I want to make it fun and entertaining for everybody because that's how we're going to come together. Remember or heard the statement, the Beltway Bandits, referring to the congressional people in Washington, D.C. What does that mean, the Beltway Bandits? It means that they're paid, and they're being paid a salary, and then they get money for the rest of their life, and they're being paid influenced by industry. Here's a little historical note. The United States has been in more wars than any country in the history of the entire planet. According to Wikipedia, it's 124 wars. So why is it that we go to war and we tell people we're going in there to establish democracy, and in fact, we don't? We go in there for reasons that have nothing to do with establishing democracy, but about resources, because money makes the world go round. But the current business model that we've been living under since the First World War has proven it's failed to be sustainable, which means simply that if we keep going down this path, and I keep hearing the song, The Eve of Destruction with Barry McGuire, there's an end coming to a lot of people on this planet. It could come from a nuclear war, and it's coming from climate change. So I want to talk about climate change just real quickly. In 1965 and the 67, the oil companies had released a study that said that science had noticed that the climate was warming because of emissions from cars. And then Al Gore was announced to the world, climate change is here. And people poo-pooed it. They said, the house is burning, look out. I understand that. I understand why people don't have time to worry about it, don't have time to think about it. So in my life's journey, I got involved with the government of the United States as an activist, asking hard-hitting questions about why the government's doing this, and then if I was in private sector, which I'd been in most of my life, how is it that we could run a government and waste this much money and get nothing done? I wasn't necessarily very popular at the time, but that's okay. But I was successful in breaking through the walls of, we'll call it literally the walls of Jericho, the Department of Energy, and looking at their science about risk, about human health, about the environment. And I discovered one thing. We don't want to talk about it. And that led me on the road of understanding radiation, nuclear waste, all of that. But most of all, government cover-up. And so in my life, I've been involved with exposing the problem, but not just exposing the problem, creating solutions. So this is what the Conscious Hour is. It isn't about me just talking. It's about you and I engaging by sending me messages of topics you want to talk about, of answers to figure out where the solutions are. I'm a solution-oriented person. I've done that my whole life. I'm 70 years old and I've come out, meaning I'm going to be broadcasting all the time, breaking down the division that's going on in the world. So let's talk about division. We're divided by borders. Got it? We got North America, that's Canada, the United States, and Mexico, even though most people don't think Mexico's in North America, but whatever, they speak a different language, so maybe they aren't in America, they're just down there, according to some people. But you have to remember that all of these people, the indigenous people, lived in the United States, inhabited the United States. And then, of course, Christopher Columbus came, and then the conquerors came, and the story of the Native Americans, they wiped out 50 to 100 million of them. Why? because they wanted to create industry, they wanted to create jobs and make money. So the conscious hour is going to take all the little pieces out here that we have in the world that some people are saying, you know, I've given up on the world. There's nothing I can do. Absolutely nothing. I don't trust the bureaucrats. They do nothing. And going back to the Beltway bandits, imagine this. Congress, they pass laws, you know, those regulations they pass. Imagine having a regulation that has 10,000 pages in it, or 5,000 pages, or 100 pages. How is it that somebody could write that much paper to create a law that's supposed to protect X or X, whatever the law is? It's because there's ways that they can get by the law. They're creating loopholes. So one simple solution, just for fun right now, I would make it mandatory in Congress that no bill could be more than 100 pages. And if you want to have footnotes and addendums that somebody might read in some future generations, go for it. But the main part of the bill has to be protective of all life, has to be protective of all the people in the United States. It cannot be about division, because we've all had enough. Now, let's talk about division. The United States right now is divided by two polar groups, Democrats and Republicans. They've been labeling us that forever. They keep us divided so they can continue the game of division, so they can continue to do the wars and spend money on things in other countries instead of spending it at home. About building a home, about building a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. The Conscious Hour is your hour. It's your hour to tune in. It's your hour to send me things that you want me to talk about, because I spent 70 years in my life asking what's wrong with the world, which means I had to go down that rabbit hole and figure it out. And then I got a solution for that one and went down that rabbit hole, figured it out. Until finally I got to this point in my life and I said, you know, I should have spoken up a long time ago. I could have never imagined that we would got to this point when I was young, that we'd be sitting on the edge of a potential nuclear war, which could have been avoided on the third day that Russia started moving their tanks into the Ukraine. But no, there was absolutely no political will. There was a way out of it, and I'll talk to you that in another show. But no, the system that's in place, Congress in Russia and the bureaucrats and their male egos fighting amongst themselves, doing the same war dance that they've done forever, never allowed for diplomacy, for communications. Think about this. Putin is worth $800 billion estimated. Do you think he wants a nuclear war? Nah. Are there people in Europe that want a nuclear war? No. Then why are we talking about, well, we're going to have a nuclear war possibly? Because it's a no-win. So what's the agenda? That's for the next show coming up. So this is kind of an intro to let you know that I'm going to be here now talking about issues, creating solutions that do one thing: bring us all together. Who's all? Forget Democrats, forget Republicans, forget communists, forget socialists, forget all these borders. Oh, you're a Hindu, or you're from here, or you're from here, and you aren't this, and you aren't. Forget all that. Go back to the teachings. All life is sacred. All life is sacred. Every family, everybody in the world has kids or family or relatives. Do you think they want war? No. Then why are we paying Congress to keep us in these perpetual wars when we can be paying Congress to create solutions for the world and bring the communities together with the world? That's what we need. We need to bring the people together. Why? Because there's only one planet. There's only one planet. It's called Earth, right? Yeah. Oh, nobody says, oh, there's other planets up there. No. Our home. Our planet Earth is our home, the collective. Think of this round table here. This is the Earth. Except we're blowing things up and destroying things and creating so much heat that the planet's warming up. The icebergs, the ice shields are melting, the sea level's rising. Why? Because we've been focused not on respect, not on what the teachings of every religion in the world talks about. Love your neighbor like you love yourself. Oh, if you can't love yourself, maybe I can understand that. Because you've been denied yourself because you've been put in a box and you don't want to be in that box. I'm here to do one thing, break all down the barriers, get rid of all the boxes, so we do one thing. We create a global community with a global system that we already have, which is a communication grid that is around the world, and we bring the family together to have conversations about what's important to you, every country in the world. And then we come together. No more wars. Global economy, global trade, and even possibly in the future, this is how far out I look, no borders. No more borders, no more passports, none of this BS of separation. If you want to go live in Argentina, you want to go live in Spain, and Spain says, hey, we want to know who you are, give us your bio. Sure, you can come in, come on in. You don't have to go bunch the red tape. Make it simple. Now we have a problem with migration coming. Why? Because climate change is happening. And for the people that don't believe climate change is real, hard to believe that people are out there, but they're out there. I will deal with climate change. I've got a background in science and politics and traveling around the world, knowing people from many different countries in the world. And no matter where I've gone, I've been accepted as an equal because I don't judge. Remember that saying in church, thou shalt not judge? Ooh, think about that one. Every church talks about that, but yet we judge. Look at the division in America. We judge. Look at the incredible division in America right now, where we're eating ourselves. Where did that come from? It came from our history. We learn from our history, not what you read in the books, but what you experienced in your life, and that affects your social behavior. And do you wonder why there's so many military people that were involved in January 6th? I know why. Because they don't like their government. Because they were lied to about these wars. Because they came back and said, excuse me, our government is corrupt as hell. And yet we run around that we're the most democratic society in the world, and we're just as corrupt as they are in Central America, South America, around the world. Pick your country. There's corruption everywhere. Corruption is simple. People thinking about themselves. And if they think about themselves and then they think about their family and think about their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren, all of a sudden their whole attitude would change, but they don't. They think about themselves right now. They don't care. Burn the planet up. I don't care if you don't make any money. I'm making so much money, I can't even spend it. So we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about health. We're going to talk about climate change. But we're going to talk about political fixes to bring the people together on planet Earth so we can live together as a family. So if you're interested in something like that, please tune into the Conscious Hour. This is my first broadcast, and I'm ready to rock and roll. After 70 years, I'm here. I've got solutions. And it has nothing to do about me. It has to do about what I learned and how we have to stop repeating the same old mistakes over and over again. So to Mr. Putin, if you're watching this, I understand what you want. US government, NATO allies, I understand what he wants. I understand, I think, what you want, more wars, but you should think about something. A global economy, which is what we had, but we had to throw war in the mix because that's another chapter in the Conscious Hour. Please tune in, and I look forward to seeing you again and listening to your questions and comments and creating a path forward so we can all become family.